right, YouTube. So we have another week ahead that's going to be full of war and rumors of war. So in this video, I'm going to remind everyone what we're really fighting about and what's at stake here for all the countries involved. Remember, this is the world stage. Every man is an actor, right? Playing their part in this whole setup. If we can see here on the map, right, we have Crimea, which was taken over by Russia in 2014. Now, they took control of 6 ports, from what I can find, 6 ports in Crimea that they were able to take control of, and that's very important for Russia. You got to remember, they need ports, they need access for their cargo, for their trade. The north side is obviously a little bit more colder, and so this is very important, in what they were looking to take back when they got Crimea back in 2014. Now, you can see on the east side of Ukraine, you have what they call separatist controlled areas, and apparently the video clips have already started to come out, and we're already seeing some people reported dead and casualties already occurring over in that eastern area. Now, I do want to remind everyone that we do have multiple actors in the area over there. We're seeing, obviously, the West is infiltrated that area, that region. They are set up along with Russia over there, lining up the border as well. So many actors in that region, and I am expecting continued pickup in military activity. Although I'm just going to say this, I do not expect a full-blown military battle or war. I think that we're going to see a isolated attack or a series of isolated attacks where they attempt to take back some of these regions once again. So that's what I'm expecting over in that region and what I'm getting at from my military sources. So for those wondering, where am I even getting this information? I'm not going to share the headlines with you that everyone else can see and read. I'm just sharing what I'm getting from active duty and former duty and former military members who are now retired. But we still have active duty connections, and I can't say much more than that, but I do appreciate getting the inside scoop. So that's what I'm hearing, is that basically we've been waiting for the Winter Olympics to wrap up, and we are about to see some action over in China as well. My sources have been telling me that as soon as the Winter Olympics wrap up, which is today, February 20th, that is when we expect to start to see some action. So as Russia is making a move, we are expecting China to be making a move on Taiwan as well. Now, my sources also tell me that basically Taiwan's going to be given to China, that we are not going to put up a fight, and that it is kind of expected here that we're about to just get embarrassed again, once again on the world stage, as Americans in the United States. We're about to get embarrassed again with Joe, our Commander-in-Chief, Joe, running the show. And it looks like basically Russia's going to move, and at that same time China's going to move on Taiwan. And you cannot fight on 2 different fronts. We know that. That's already been proven in multiple wars. So we are expecting China to basically take Taiwan, and we are expecting Russia to take parts of Ukraine back. So that is what I'm getting from my military sources and what they're telling me. Basically, we were waiting for the Olympics to wrap up, and now we're expecting some action. So heading into this week is going to be massive into springtime, which is when we start to see spring uprisings, revolutions in countries as well. That's already starting. So it's really just all coming to a head, and you can definitely feel it in the air. But let's remind everyone what's really at stake here and what's really this battle's all about. So I'm starting to use the term currency war more because I believe that is really what's at stake here and what we're actually fighting over, the US dollar being the reserve currency. So, but it goes further than just the trade deals not being done in dollars. So this article is from 2018. Russia dumped 84% of its American debt, and what this means. So Russia, back in 2018, rapidly sold off the vast majority of its stash of American debt. Between March and May, Russians' holdings Russia's holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds plummeted by 81 billion, representing 84% of its total U.S. debt holdings. Now, what's interesting about this is they're dumping American debt. Other countries have been as well. But you're also seeing the Federal Reserve now say that they want to reduce their balance sheet. And that is the same thing here, the Treasury bonds that they have been buying. And they had to ramp that up because Russia and other countries have stopped buying our debt, buying our Treasury bonds. They've offloaded it. And so the Fed had to ramp up the amount of bonds that they were buying in their repurchasing programs, right? But now we're hearing that the Fed is going to end tapering in March and that they're trying to offload their balance sheet. Well, as you can see, Russia doesn't want any of our Treasury bonds. So as I was saying back when I first covered that news is, who the hell wants to buy our debt? Who the hell wants our Treasury bonds at this point in time? And then that also includes our mortgage-backed securities and other different securities and bonds that our government has been purchasing, even going as far as corporate bonds as well, which I mentioned how Trump changed that back during his presidency when he allowed BlackRock to basically be the broker on behalf of the Federal Reserve to start buying up corporate bonds as well as the mortgage-backed securities and our Treasury bonds. So basically our whole Ponzi scheme is just being inflated and bought up by our own Federal Reserve. And you're starting to see other countries not accept our debt, not want to buy our Treasury bonds. And this is what's falling apart for America and how we continue to lose the reserve currency status. It goes further than just countries not using the US dollar for trade. Now, this is a recent article, February 18th, and I find this absolutely hilarious. So, the White House is saying that kicking Russia out of SWIFT unlikely to be in the initial sanctions package. So essentially, we don't approve what you're doing. We're warning that the invasion of Ukraine's imminent. Putin's such a bad guy. But we're going to let you continue to use the SWIFT system for now. I find this absolutely hilarious. It's like, we don't like what you're doing, but we still want your business, right? We're not willing to kick you off quite yet, you big bad guy, Mr. Putin. Please continue to use the SWIFT system while you're at it. I mean, it's an absolute joke, but it's just leading us into what I'm about to talk about and what I'm about to remind everyone. Quick little history lesson at the central banks and the war and the role that the banks have played in perpetuating an endless state of war and terror across the world. And I may get in trouble for this video. I don't know, might not be able to monetize this one, but that's fine because we got to get this truth out to you guys. Let's get into it. Can't say the name, but it starts with an R, and you guys already know. This man said, "Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws." They have controlled the world through the issuance of money of the nations across this planet. They've all come and been brought to the table of these elite group of private bankers that don't have the interest of any country, of any common man or woman, right? This is all about profits for the bankers. And our founding fathers warned us of this. Thomas Jefferson said, "I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already, they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power of money should be taken away from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs." Continuing on, Thomas Jefferson said, "If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of their currencies, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all their prosperity until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered." And lastly, he said, "The end of democracy and the defeat of the American Revolution will occur when government falls into the hands of lending institutions and moneyed corporations." Andrew Jackson said, "If the people only understood the rank injustice of our money and banking system, there would be a revolution by morning." Now, I want to add in here, a lot of people now are being taught in schools, and now I've come to the conclusion that capitalism is bad. It's evil. It doesn't work. Folks, when the Federal Reserve took control of this country in 1913, okay, and we lost control, the issuance of issuing our own money, that is when capitalism started to fail. Our country became so prosperous because of the free market capitalism that we had in the early 1800s, all the way, basically from the inception of our country up until the early 1900s. That is when the Federal Reserve took control. And leading up to that, we also had when the Corporation of DC was created as well. I'm not going to get into that here. But basically, a corporation, an entity outside of the United States of America was created in DC, and then they took control of issuing our currencies in 1913 with the Federal Reserve. Ever since then, we've been in crony capitalism. We've been operating under crony capitalism. Okay? This has not been true free market capitalism ever since these central bankers took control of our country, and ever since a corporation in DC started to rule over us. Now, General Smedley Butler, this was back in the 1930s, said war is a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes. And this is why I say that we're about to live through the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. He was speaking right before World War II. Okay, this was in the 1930s. At the time of his death, he was the most decorated Marine alive. And he's telling you what this is all about. We are about to live through another great wealth transfer. This one, I believe, will be the greatest in the history because we have an internet of value that's being created. So not only are we going through another wartime, another time of crisis, where very many people will be expensed at the cost and of the gain of a few people. That is what is at stake right now. Now, I've got to give a huge shout out to Ron Paul. This is the man that should have been our president back in, well, he ran in 2008, and he ran in 2012. He is what really started my awakening in 2012 when I started to learn about the Federal Reserve, because he wrote the book End the Fed. He wrote a bunch of other good books, and then he started a whole movement and really spearheaded a whole movement of getting back our individual liberties, freedom, and then taking back control of this country back from the government. Basically just getting government out of our lives and understanding that many people, even with good intentions in our government, don't realize the monster that they are a part of. That is the bureaucracy that has been the beast in DC. It's not even possible for them to actually basically get anything done or to benefit the American people, especially when they've been sold out. And like I said, crony capitalism has been running this country. So they have been selling us out in DC to the interest of the private bankers, Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, ever since the Federal Reserve took control in 1913. So like Ron Paul says, it is no coincidence that the century of total war coincided with the century of central banking. And look at where we're at now. I mean, it's only just gone out of control since 2001. Since the September 11th attacks, 2001, this thing has just gone like full send, right? As far as the inflation in our country, the financial collapse in 2008, we never fixed the issues. We just perpetuated it and actually inflated and ramped it back up. And now here we are in 2022 on the brink of a reset, restructuring, and revaluation that is needed of the U.S. reserve currency status. The rest of the world is saying, we're not accepting your paper fiat monopoly money. We want to operate with currencies that actually have real value. Now, lately I've been saying that we have entered false flag season. I don't say this lightly. I'm obviously taking a very serious tone when I talk about this because people die. Real people get caught up in this. So I'm not saying that these events don't occur, that real people aren't going to be casualties of war, and that actual events aren't going to occur. There's going to be real lives lost. So I'm not saying this lightly, but I want you guys to understand and be prepared for when attacks occur, when we get fed a story here, that it might not be completely true. Now, let's go back in the history books here. Many people, of course, we weren't taught what actually matters in school, but almost no one knows about this event, which was never actually a real event. And you can go back and look at all the declassified documents and verify this for yourself, but this is completely true. Did you know that the Tonkin Bay incident, where 2 U.S. destroyers were attacked by North Vietnam, which was used by the U.S. President Lyndon Johnson as an excuse to launch the Vietnam War, which resulted in the deaths of millions of Vietnamese, never happened? That's right. Never happened. Completely false story, made up and fabricated, so that we could launch the attacks and launch a full-out war with Vietnam. Now, the backstory on this, which I'm not going to go too deep on, but obviously Lyndon Johnson had to be brought in because John F. Kennedy was he was against the wars, and he was also against the central banks. You guys already know the speech that he gave right before he was shot, and that's what happens. When you go against these central bankers, they roll out the tanks. When you speak out against them, when you stop the military-industrial complex from getting what they want, I'm going to be careful with my words, but literally, guys, they put a bullet in your head. May he rest in peace. This is a very serious deal, and I want us to be prepared. When events are about to occur, when we're about to have false flags that take place, understand that I don't trust the Western media, I don't trust the Russian media. Whatever we're going to get from them is at best going to be a half-truth. So we have to proceed with discernment. We have to understand that all the world's a stage. We have to understand that this year is the reset, restructuring, and revaluation of the U.S. reserve currency status year. It is a debt jubilee year. I keep on mentioning this for those of you who want to understand what I'm talking about. In September, it was the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and we entered a Jubilee year, which is part of the 7-year cycle in the Hebrew calendar. Go look this up. Get educated and understand why these events are occurring this year. There's a reason for this. This is a Jubilee year, a Shemitah year is what they call it. This will end in September. So it started in September 2021. It'll end in September 2022. So whatever we're about to go through, I do want to remind everyone that it should be wrapped up. It should be concluded, at least the financial events, by September of this year. Now, what I just spoke about, I understand could get me in trouble here. I just want people to know the truth, right? This is not political talk. This is just simply understanding our history, our Constitution, what made America the country it was, and how we got hijacked and who hijacked our country. Who hijacked the interest of the American people. The politicians that we elect to go represent us. This story tells you who's paying and lining their pockets and getting them to serve their interest versus that of ours. That is what is at stake here. Now, this is the reset, restructuring, revaluation that we're talking about. This is directly from SWIFT. ISO 222, already used by payment systems in over 70 countries. In the coming years, it will be the de facto standard for high-value payment systems of all reserve currencies, supporting 80% of global volumes and 87% of value transacted across the world. This is all set to be updated starting in November of 2022 and concluding in 2025. So when people ask me about price predictions and when is crypto adoption actually going to occur, when is the new financial system going to be rolled out, well, they're telling us. When we look and we understand the calendar, the timing, the events that are unfolding, and then we look ahead to the program that they're laying out, we have turbulence. We have a rough ride this year. 22 is the master destroyer, master builder number. So in the year 2022, it all makes sense now, right? We put this full timeline together for you guys to help you understand what we're living through and to help you prepare for what we call the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. I appreciate you all. Our time is coming. Much wealth will be transferred, and if you prepare accordingly, you can benefit from this transition of wealth. We can come out on the other side of this, and if we fight, we can hopefully restore freedom and sound currency across this world once again. I appreciate all of you, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. God bless.